Well, what we like to do, folks, is really have a conversation. We could present till the cows come home, but we want to get a couple of slides in to sort of set the context, and then we'll show you the material, the curricula, live, and then let's have a conversation about it. Because part of the goal is that we've been doing this in Michigan with Michigan teachers, but now, thanks to Fran, we have it aligned with the Texas TEKS. So the curricula that we have is aligned, K5 is aligned with Texas. So if we can get some Texas folks using it in the fall, and what we're finding is the teachers, educators now in Michigan at least, are worrying about the fall. So now is the time to start talking to them. It's kind of weird, I think. Okay, so I can share my screen.
Yes, you can.
Okay, here we go, sports fans. Okay, let's get this done. Okay.
Yes, please do use the chat, and we'll be happy. I'll try to monitor the chat. Elliot's not good at monitoring the chat, but we'll get the questions down. And you can also interrupt us.
Okay, next generation. It's all about the next generation. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I want to remind us of some terminology. Shoshana Zuboff wrote a book called In the Age of the Smart Machine, like 1988. And she used two terms, automate versus informate. And automate, she talked about replicating paper processes. So for example, using a computer to track inventory. So you needed to do it on paper, so you did it with a computer. But what Dell did is they didn't automate, they got rid of inventory, and she used the term informate. And what she observed was, when you automate, you can get some benefit at a computer. You do. But the real benefits of using computers is when you don't replicate the paper and you take advantage of the affordances of the technology. And we're going to come back to this idea of automate versus informate when we look at curricula. And so needed those terms. There's a lot of beeping and bumping and blah.
It's the waiting room, just like you have.
Oh, okay. Kathy.
So when I was still in the classroom, and that was a long time ago, public school classroom, they kept telling us what we had to do is integrate technology into your curriculum. Well, we heard that from 1995 to 24, and there was tools, but then we had the internet. First, it was just, basic programming and some apps, but then they added the internet to it. And we're supposed to integrate that into our curriculum. But what we found was we had to stop throwing tools at teachers, because we found that they don't want more tools. They wanted curriculum. They don't want just technology. What they wanted was for us to give them technology that was already incorporated into the curriculum, instead of making them figure out how to do it themselves. So then OER came along. OER, Open Educational Resources. And it was a wonderful way for teachers to grab things to use in their classroom. But the Open Educational Resources were, for the most part, just objects. So it was one activity here and one activity there and one activity over here. But again, we left it to the teachers to figure out how to work these digital activities into their paper and pencil curriculum or whatever they were doing. But they had to figure out how to use them and where to use them.
There's a third grade teacher in Colorado wrote a blog for us. And I'm going to read this because I thought it was so powerful. In the absence of textbooks, individual teachers are forced to spend hours searching the internet for resources. The process is not only time-consuming, but much of the material online has little to no editorial oversight. With no textbooks, every teacher becomes an improvisational curriculum designer, which they try to do on the fly while also teaching their classes every day. When this amount of effort is multiplied by all teachers doing the same thing around the country, it is clear that we are reinventing the wheel nightly to the detriment of both students and teachers. Now, that's an observation of a third grade teacher. And this was like a couple of years ago. And like, oh my God, what are we doing to these poor people? So in July 2019, we started the Center for Digital Curricula in the College of Engineering. I'm going to say something, I don't mean to be nasty, but the School of Education thinks the internet is a fad and it's going to go away. That's not true. But
that's in Michigan. That's in Michigan.
So, and I learned, I mean, I'm a techie. So I actually learned about this thing that there's a difference between content and curriculum from somebody we know. Because I didn't, what the heck do I know the difference between content and curriculum? And they want curriculum. Okay, got it. Because I'm a tool guy, I develop tools. And so, but what the center was trying to do, and we have some funding from the College of Engineering, was we developed what we're calling deeply digital, and we'll explain that. And then we developed the Collaborify roadmap platform to support, runtime support, the deeply digital curriculum. And what we developed was for K-5, 4 science curricula. NGSS, math, we used Engage New York as the backbone, because we can't develop curricula. We have to use what's there, but then make it deeply digital. For ELA, it's called MESA, and we took the MESA curriculum, Michigan something, and there's a social studies MESA, and we took it and made it. Now, who is we? There are 9 teachers working with us. They're incredible. They're absolutely incredible. I mean,
right, and the whole goal for the center was to create a library of curricula so that schools could come in and they'd say, okay, I don't want NGSS, it's too hard, I want mystery science. Or, and instead of this math, I would like this. And I'd like, but I would like this social studies. Develop enough curricula so that there's a library available for schools to come in and tell us exactly what it is they want. The problem is it's very costly to pay people to develop curricula and to have teams to vet the curricula and so on. That's what we found.
And you can't read this, but thank you, Fran. She aligned the Michigan work with the Texas TEKS. So we really feel very comfortable now saying, yes, this is it. This is it. Now, I'm going to go live now. We will show you what deeply digital curricula is as a summary, but let's just see it in action, okay? Can you see my screen? This is Fire. Okay. This is roadmap.center, and that's the URL, roadmap.center. And the toolbar on the left is what the teachers see. It's not exactly what the students see, and I'll show you that in a second. But we have a repository of 1,000 roadmaps. Let's see. Oops, nope. Hold on. No, I got them getting out of order. Okay, this is 1,000 of these. This is what the curricula is. And the teachers go here and they download it, UMCDC, kindergarten, MESA, writing unit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's over 1,000. And the teachers come here. We're now in, we got about 3,500 kids every day using this materials every single day, about 200 teachers. This is my personal roadmap collection because I have one, the teachers have one. And so this is
every time a teacher downloads, then it goes into their personal repository. It's theirs to keep, change, do whatever they want to, personalize however they see fit.
And distribute is where the teachers distribute to the kids. Now you could use Google Classroom if you want, or Schoology, or what have you, but we can distribute here. You can actually distribute it as a collaborative group. Teachers can make groups ahead of time and then makes all the right copies and gets all the right permissions. This is where the teachers go to actually monitor and the kids in real time. They can see what's on the kids' screen and on their computers if they're in our apps in real time. And this is where the teachers manage the classrooms, much like Google Classroom. Okay. I'm not going to show this, but this is basically the notion of everything in one place. I mean, you could use Google Classroom. Okay. But you don't need it. You really don't need it anymore. And the parents tell us they don't want it. So let me show you a roadmap. This is a roadmap. It's a concept map. It's a concept map. And you click on a node. The drawer on the left opens up. There's instructions, etc. And I'm going to launch it. And I just want to show you the feel of it. This is the website for the center. Now I want to come over here. And Kathy, do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, well, my dog is talking with me. These are just ways, these are pictures. The top one is Monique Kuhlman. And the way Monique implements the roadmaps, she has every child doing their own. She's got activities, but every child has their own roadmap on their own Chromebook. And they work in groups as they choose, as they want to collaborate. So that's pretty much a student directed. And then there's the station directed, which is down below. And there are other teachers who like to put students into stations like that. And then there are some teachers who prefer to lead the activities. And then they'll let the children work occasionally, but they've got the roadmap on their whiteboard. And most of the time the teacher has a roadmap on the whiteboard anyway, but they will lead the majority of the activities kind of as a class. So it just depends on how they want to implement the roadmaps, because it can be a number of different ways.
But we don't like the term online learning. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, it's not online learning.
Right.
While the curriculum is browser based, the teacher is very much an active player, whether they're in school or not. And we'll look at some of the schedules later because we've got some schools that are not in session yet. And they've got their children at home, but the teacher is still a very active component in everything that they're doing.
So I'm going to come back to this roadmap, and I just want to show you, well, I'm going to show you two things. This is a teacher called Mrs. Skinner, and during the COVID break, she had a class of second graders, and she's from Britain, Mrs. Skinner. So her theme was Hogwarts and Harry Potter. And this is a schedule, a roadmap that she used with second graders.
Is that
and they had,
Elliot, because it's very hard to read?
Okay, let me see if I can make it bigger. Okay, hold on. There you go. How's that? Better? Better. And she sent this out. The parents see it. They knew what the kids are doing. And this is during the COVID break. So this is her schedule. And second graders had absolutely no trouble working through the schedule and the curricula. So I want to show one more. Do you want to talk about this one, Kath?
I'm answering the question. The question was, is the presentation of materials custom to each teacher? Is there a form teachers complete that customizes the presentation of the curriculum content so they only see the options relevant to them? Once the teachers download the curriculum, they can make any changes that they want in it. They can customize it as they choose. They save it back to their repository, and it is theirs to use. We don't do the customization. We'll give them the curriculum as is, and they can make any changes that they want. And we do PD on it. There's roadmap PD, there's live PD to show them how to customize it.
And this is during the COVID break, kindergartners, and they were doing predator prey.
Yes.
And the teacher made a 7-minute, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
A 7-minute Loom video on how to use a tool we call Flipbook. And I'm going to click here and I'm going to launch Flipbook. It's one of the most popular tools that we have. And it's part of the Collaborify suite. This is a kindergartner version of predator prey.
In other words, it's their understanding, and the animation is how we often let children express their understanding. So what she did, she had taught the idea of predator prey, and then she sent this 7-minute video to show children how to do animation. And that's what this child created. And there's a whole bunch of different ones. There's a Spider-Man one where Spider-Man goes up and gets something out of the web. And clearly the kindergarten children understood the predator-prey relationship. And it doesn't take a multiple choice test to figure that out. All you have to do is look at their artifacts to see if they understand.
And notice the toolbar of Flipbook.
Exactly, Debbie.
At the bottom here, there's a microphone. So the kids record tracks, voice tracks over it, and they tell stories that with the animation. I mean, it's really astonishing what these kids have figured out how to do. So I want to go back. I hope I got so many tabs. Okay. Yes. Okay. Now, this is, again, the repository. This is one curricular unit. This is a 4th grade and for next generation science standards. It's a whole unit. Now, the kids might not see this because the teachers are going to send out one of the roadmaps, but you could have one roadmap for the entire year, and because roadmaps can have roadmaps inside them, and so they're nested. And this is one unit for 4th grade. Okay.
And
so
this is what the teachers typically do. They build their whole curriculum, or we build it.
yes.
Some will edit it, but we build the whole thing, and then they just click through.
So I want to show it to you now in the student version. When you you click here, I'm going to close it. So the kids, this is the one I want to show. Okay, this is the one I want to show. Sorry. This is one of them, and this is what the children would see. 4th graders would see this. And it's always a driving question. Do other animals remember what they see? And first off is turn and talk. That's the first thing. And if you're in a physical classroom, well, you turn to your elbow partner. But notice in the top right corner, there's a phone. So we're using Twilio's voice over IP, VoIP, and the kids could talk to each other when they're sitting at the kitchen table, at their tables, and they talk to each other. And some of the kids are at the kitchen table, and some of the kids are in the classroom, and they're talking to each other. And one of the teachers actually uses the phone in classroom because she's got the kids staggered in terms of safe distances, and she doesn't want them shouting to each other because they're working collaboratively, so they use the phone. And so you click on a node, the toolbar opens up, you launch the activity. When you're done, you click. They love this. They love the check marks. Oh, they love the visual. They love to see where they're going, where they're doing. They love it. And okay, this is what Kathy said earlier. This is a schedule for 5th graders. And the kids get this like every day or every week. And at 9 o'clock, you have your check-in. At 9:15, you do this. Notice there's some icons in the nodes. Well, they're kindergartners. They don't read the nodes. They got to look at the icons. And, spruces it up. Again, visual, very visual. And this is a schedule. Kids get it. They use it.
And notice in there, anything that's a URL can be in a node. There's something down there that says iReadyMath. Well, iReadyMath must be a program that this particular teacher uses to do their, it's Freckle.
Freckle, I forget it. I changed it. It's Freckle.
Okay, so it's Freckle Math. And that's an outside product, but a roadmap can contain links to Google, links to a Pearson product, to whatever it is a school happens to have bought. If they don't want to use what's here, some of them have bought particular things, and maybe they have Mystery Science. They bought a subscription to Mystery Science. So there would be a link instead of the science over there on the right at 1 o'clock. It would be a link to Mystery Science, whatever the Mystery Science lesson was for today. So it's completely open as far as what content you can bring in to the lesson. It can come from anywhere that's a URL.
Um, this one here, this particular roadmap was done, I'll show it to you. This is done by multiple teachers working collaboratively, and they put where the specials are, and each kid, they have their specials so they can go to their group. The teachers build this collaboratively. Here's another one that the teachers built collaboratively, that and they use the phone too at night. They'll use the phone to work together. This one over here is the phys ed teacher, the gym teacher, and then the art teacher and the music teacher, and they work together. They create roadmaps together. Again, now you could use your cell phone, but might as well just use this phone and just talk through the computer. And then this number here goes up, and you can see the people's names. And if you want to add a collaborator, it's just add collaborator, bingo, and you're in.
Okay. And what it means when Elliot says they build it collaboratively, when they're in that collaborative group, they're all seeing the same screen. It's just like Google Docs. So any of them, they can be creating their PE map, for example, and that teacher's working on the PE map. She just plops it in. Somebody else is working on the STEM map. They plop it in. The art teacher's doing hers, and then they all plop them in. And this is their end product, but they're all seeing that same screen, that same map at the same time.
I want to show something. Yes, this is kindergarten. This is kindergarten math. This is Engage New York or Eureka, Eureka Math. And what's interesting about this is these 4 nodes here are exactly from Engage New York Math. But then we've added practices, we've added games, we've added manipulatives. The nodes with an Apple badge are only for the teacher. So the kids will not see these nodes. So this is information for the teacher. And so we have homework help for the teacher, for the parents. On some of them, they actually have help for the parents because the parents are going to help the kids. But this is what the kids do. And we talk about digitized versus digital. And in some sense, this is just digitized, whatever was Engaged New York. There you go. Something happened. But we've added other material, and that's why we're going to say that this is more digital. It's not just not just digitized. Okay, I'm going to stop this, and I'm going to come back here. I'm going to leave this. Can you guys see this? Is this good enough? And so this is what we mean by deeply digital. Kathy, do you want to talk a little bit about it?
And we say it's not just digitized because, there's a difference between just digitizing a piece of paper and creating something that is a digital object. Everything is interactive, so you don't have to memorize. You can go back and forth to lessons. You've got access to them. The students collaborate routinely, and that means they share the screen, they talk to each other, they build at the same time, just like Google Docs. There's the idea of self-expression. The children, almost every app has the ability for students to talk, to take videos, so that if they're not comfortable just writing, they can speak their answer either using just an audio track or an audio and visual track. And we tried to make the interface itself visual. Instead of just being text-based, we've got it so everything is visual. It's completely open. That's what I was talking about before. Anything that you want to go into the roadmap, you can put into it. Anything that is a URL can go in there. Teachers, like in the schedule, they'll change it. They don't do the Pledge of Allegiance, or they don't do morning announcements, or they don't do this particular math. Okay, fine. Then just plop a new URL in there or new words. And there's scaffolding for all the learners. They can have things read to them. They can give voice answers. We put all the scaffolds in that we possibly can. And they can call. That phone is there all the time. They can call any of their classmates for questions, for help, for discussion. They can call their teacher. Teachers aren't always available outside of school hours, but if they're at home, they can still call their teacher too.
And the second property is everything in one place, one-stop shop. That's actually how the teachers refer to it. And you want to talk this through?
Oh, it doesn't make it. The whole lesson is there. They don't have to go someplace else to get activities, because as they say, if it's links to reading, they can have the whole link in, or the link to it in the roadmap. So the students always see the whole flow of the lesson. Collaboration is either same place, same time, or it can be, they can do synchronous or asynchronous collaboration. The teacher feedback is in the same place. The teachers give feedback. They can, and a lot of the teachers will use the same audio video to say, I heard one just the other day saying, doesn't look like you wrote anything in your log for this week. What are you thinking? I think you better get busy. You didn't leave me anything last night. So they can leave that audio video message instead of having to write things. Parent-teachers conversations can also take place in the same place using the Twilio, and the teachers can converse back and forth. Same thing.
And we're about to put in tutors.
Point. They don't have to go someplace else to do it.
And we're about to make tutors available. Everything is in the I mean, there's a tool called Remind, which parents and teachers use, but it's divorced from the curricula. It's divorced from the kids' work. But everything is tied to that roadmap, to the curricula. And that's when we say everything is in one place.
Okay, we have a question about how do you handle the copyright on the materials? Do you want to address that, Elliot?
Sure. If the schools buy the materials, let's say, yeah, if they buy the materials, then it's theirs. We don't post anything if we'll catch it if something goes wrong. I mean, but no, we respect copyright. And most of the materials that you'll see are OER, the FET simulations, PHET simulations. It's Engage New York. It's all free. We're careful about that. It's very important. I agree.
Well, and a lot of the things are locked. And so if it is a locked resource, then the students have the key to it. And for example, I would put, if I'm using a Pearson thing and it requires a key, then I put the key in the instructions so that, and nobody else has access to roadmaps unless I give them access. So those roadmaps with my key in it for the Pearson lessons would go out. Elliot, there's another question. Can you look at the chat? This is very guided, a scaffold that every student can benefit from in some way. How adaptive is the learning experience? What assessments are used to measure student learning? Let me answer that last question quick. Many of the assessments, if not most, are based on artifacts. Did they create? Does their work reflect a knowledge of what they're doing? Can they explain, like we have them do when they're learning, say, long division? Can they explain using words and the numbers, the actual steps? Can they give me a step-by-step explanation of how it's done? And other assessments.
We're using NWEA in the sort of the national assessments, but the teachers there's Google Forms where the kids answer questions, but a lot of it is this artifact-based assessment, and the teachers are working with the kids. So are they talking? And we were literally last night, we're talking about a spreadsheet to help the teachers keep track of who talks when, because this is very much a work in progress, this system.
Right.
And yeah, adaptive. Now that's an interesting one. Remember, the curriculum is created, but some of the kids are strugglers. So the teachers know that and can change the roadmap a wee bit, make it a little simpler, and send it out to their kids. And for the kids who are going faster, maybe include other materials so they can do differentiated instruction pretty easily. And they say like this picture of the classroom, there's kids going to have different roadmaps on them, and they're working away.
Um,
I want to show that we had a pilot started last September, and it ended March 12th because March 13th, Michigan closed. And we had about 400 kids, 7 schools. It was going great. But then March 13th, they closed down for COVID. And what we learned was you needed seamless transition, that they were making, paper packets and delivering it. Kathy's son was delivering paper packets to the
and literally
kids.
delivering. He was driving
Literally.
to children's homes.
And
Because
we
what
did,
they found was if they didn't deliver them, the parents didn't pick them up.
and we didn't. We were going, and one of the teachers actually said we didn't miss a beat. We went from school to home, no problem. Second
Yeah.
graders.
This is addressing Lauren's question about remote learning.
Hi.
It's exactly what they did. They had all their roadmaps, so they just took their Chromebooks, they sent their Chromebooks home with them, and they continued working on the same thing, talking to their teachers via the telephone. And the teachers do use Zoom sometimes also. They will put them in, especially for the 6th graders or 7th graders, they'll put them in Zoom rooms, even 5th grade, because I know Monique Kuhlman puts hers in individual meeting rooms for discussions, and she goes back and forth between the individual rooms in Zoom when she wants whole class meetings.
But we do object to the term online again, because it's not like the kids are going to be left alone. No, I mean, they're going to be working, of course, individually. There's some asynchronous, but it's not like for hours at a stretch. Okay, kid, go away and do your work. No, that's not how we conceive it. That's not how the teachers conceive it. It's very much synchronous.
Yes, Mike, and that formative assessment, we believe that too. That's why when we give them so many ways to show what they know. And first it was writing, and then it was, okay, use the animation, drawing and animation, because we found that sometimes they would do a drawing and there would be parts of the drawing, and of course they have to describe it. They were describing it in writing, and then we gave them the ability to talk the explanation of their science experiment, what it's actually doing. And then we gave them the option to video what they're talking, how they're talking and explaining. Because what we found is when you see part of it and you hear their explanation, then you can get some idea and you can start questioning what they really do understand. So they start it by what they draw and say, and then you can take it from there and lead them in the direction that you need to. But they have to have something to start with. And what we found, we learned this years ago in Singapore, is that when you just give them something where they have to write, if they don't know the answer, they leave it blank. So you have no clue, you have no insight into what the children really know. But if you give them the ability to show the teacher in another way, either by drawing pictures and explaining, then you get a much better idea of what they do understand. So I agree with you completely. Linking the words with the visual. Elliot?
Sorry, I'm just getting my equipment here set up. So, so we started the school year, 2020, 21. We had a bunch of schools that were face-to-face, and some were remote only, about 1,500 kids in a school that was just remote. And then we had a bunch of hybrids, that some were kids are remote and some kids are in classroom. We had some rural schools. There's a school district called Tri-County, and we're working now in Detroit public schools, grades 3, 4, and 5. All they're doing is NGSS, the science. So, but we have roughly 3,500 kids, a couple hundred teachers every day, banging away using this. People of Oklahoma, Hawaii found it, and they're using it with their kids. It's pretty amazing, really. It's pretty amazing. But before we go on, this OER, do you want to talk a little bit about that problem that we found with the OER and the Google Classroom, Google Cloud Platform, or do you want me to talk about it?
Yeah, I think you should, because I don't know what you're
Okay.
talking about in this
Uh,
particular instance.
we wanted to make everything free, right? We wanted
Oh,
to make it free,
oh,
right? Oh, that. And but we're using the Google Cloud platform, right? I mean, a Chromebook is nothing inside it. Everything goes up and down, up and down, up and down, storage and computation. And Google charges us. It's charging the Center for Digital Curricula for the roadmaps. And we talked to the schools, and most of them were very understanding, like how they're paying $400 to $500 per kid per course when they buy commercial curricula. And I won't name the companies. I'm not trying to cast aspersions here, but that's what it's costing: $400 to $500 per course per kid per year. Whoa, whoa. And that really is digitized. It's whatever was on paper, they put on a computer, and then they put some videos. Um, we have a tool called PDF Pal, which will knock your socks off, which takes PDFs and makes them live documents. You can put audio in them, that we're having video in them. It's incredible what we can do with PDFs. And it's
well, and
simple to use. Kindergartners can use it.
that was to accommodate a request from teachers who had some materials that they really thought were good. You know, some worksheets or something that they really, really liked, but they wanted children to be able to fill them out, to mark them up, to answer, to draw, or whatever on the PDF, like they would if they were in the classroom. So we're always open to creating new tools at the request of teachers, and PDF Pal was one of them.
Right. Um, Actually, let me bring this back up just for a second.
Oh, it's got to show the tools.
Yep, that's what I'm just about to do. There you
I
go.
know.
There you go. Hello. So these are all the potential nodes in. Why don't you talk this, Kathy? You know this one.
Well, these are, in other words, when teachers are creating nodes, these are the different types. Now, there's a driving question. We like the idea of a driving question. You see one at the top. How can I model composition and decomposition of numbers 1, 2, 5, and so on? There's a question. And we like the idea of having them in it. And I'm looking at the
roadmap is a roadmap within a roadmap. Flipbook is the animation. Map is a concept mapping tool. Writer, Kathy wants this to call them the multimedia writer.
Well, because it is. You can do audio, you can do video, you can do it. It's not just a writing program. It's not Microsoft Word. Because you can, that's where they send all of their messages back and forth. That's where the teacher creates videos to send back to the teachers, to the students, to give them feedback. That's where the children answer in videos. And one of them, we did some SEL activities, and I don't remember what the question was. Do you remember, Elliot, where
what's your favorite dog, what's your favorite thing?
What's your favorite thing? And they did everything from their dogs, and they did it all with video, and to their little brother. This is my favorite thing. My little brother, they've got it under an arm. But again, they have the opportunity. And so writer is a misnomer on the name of it. KWL, this is what I know, this is what I wonder, this is what I've learned. They use that all the time for brainstorming. Chart is a very simple. Now remember, this curriculum was designed for K-5. So that's a very simple version of Excel. There's a Venn diagramming program because, again, science and math teachers both ask to be able to do Venn diagramming. What's the next one say?
PDF Pal.
Okay, PDF Pal. It's in yellow. I can't see it on the screen. It's too little. PDF Pal you can take any PDF, and it's as though it's a live document. That's something I find all the time. Oh, and then you can output it if you want to. If they want to show their parents something, they can also print their PDF. And
this is not Kami. Kami is a very powerful PDF markup tool, impossible to use. But this kindergartners can mark up the PDFs and draw on it and record their voice. It's so cool.
And then web resource, as I said, anything that is a URL, any tool, any activity, whatever, can be an element in a node.
Import my file. If anything on your computer, you can import to a node. Learning activities offline. Go measure something. Go talk to your parents.
Yeah,
Go
and
do
that's a
something.
very important one, because we were talking to someone last night from the Lucas Foundation, and they were saying that um, they thought that roadmaps would have children sitting there all day looking at their screen, until they visited a classroom and actually saw a teacher implementing them. And then they realized that no, that's just the map of the activities. But the activities are sit on the floor in this group, turn and talk to your pal. They don't have, some of the teachers said they don't use it. They'll have it on their board during the day, but they don't have the children actually doing the activities, because they're sitting on the floor building their cars that they're going to use to test friction for NGSS. So they may not use them at all. So the learning activities are very important, because those are the off computer things. That's when you use your manipulatives and create things in your math and so on. So they're very much important. Blank slides,
Yeah, teacher narrative node for teachers.
those are instructions for teachers.
Right. And then of course you can have all your Google stuff. Right. And if you want, we can put another one there. We put the Sage Modeler, which Concord Consortium wanted, so we put it there. Any tools you want, but any URL.
All right, we have a question about continue discussing the cost factors. So we said what
Oh,
was
yeah.
we could not handle providing something free that actually cost us money. And not only do we have to pay Google, but we have to pay Keen, another company, for the storage of the data. And so what we arrived at after calculating and looking at actual use models is $24 per student per year will cover what it's costing us to use the
Maintain
Google
this is
Cloud and the storage and some of the development on the
Collaborify.
new materials.
And
Neither
people,
Elliot nor I have taken a penny.
oh no.
Only payment we've made is to the programmers and to the teachers who develop and the teachers who vet.
So, but this is a real problem for OER. Somebody has to pay.
Yes, and it's not just us. We found that Concord Consortium was trying to provide OER materials. They can't do it either. Digital Promise is another group. We've had these conversations with other groups because we wanted to find out how they were doing it, and they all ran into the same problem. They said, oh, we're going to provide this free. And then they found that they can't, because there is always a cost to do it. And we don't have enough philanthropic money to be able to do that at this point. You know, maybe sometime if we can get a company to decide to pay for all of this, that would be great.
But it's a real problem. OER's got to face up to it. Moodle rooms, if you really look carefully, Moodle rooms, it costs, unless you want to maintain your own servers. God help you maintain your own servers. So, yes, we need to finish out this conversation about cost. It's very real. But
yeah, we
$24?
haven't applied for Department of Education funding. We have been going primarily, we've done 4 proposals this year to different foundations. But the problem with the foundations is they're very specific about what towns, for example, with all the work in Detroit, you'd think that, and the Skillman Foundation funds Detroit, but they have funded them, well, not just Skillman, but Detroit was funded to the tune of $23 million this last year. And what they did, you know, because of COVID, and what they did was build out infrastructure.
Right.
They provided every child with a Chromebook, and they built out the infrastructure, but the curriculum, and they bought Schoology as their
LMS.
LMS.
Yeah.
But
so
good question, Tandra. And if you'd like to do that, I certainly encourage you to do that. And the other thing is, there's so much research that needs to be done on this. I mean, we are so busy doing the day-to-day with the teachers, not that there are issues, but last night there were conversations with the Lucas Foundation because they want to scale the NGSS science, which they originally paid $5 million for. They want to scale the roadmaps into Wisconsin and these different states, but how do we do it? And the one thing that I learned was a mistake that we made. Well, actually, we learned it initially. The mistake that we made when this year, when all these teachers came on board, is that we, in our PD, we taught them too much about the tool itself and not enough about just using the curriculum, because so many teachers don't want to have to modify. They want to just go in and use the curriculum. And we didn't start by saying, here's curriculum that you can use as is. If you want to modify it, you can, but let's show you, let's model for you how the curriculum is used as it's built. That's what we needed to do first, and we didn't do it. And so in this discussion with Lucas last night, they said that they were reluctant about roadmaps until they saw the teacher using them. I thought, we know better than that. Why didn't we create videos? Just video the teachers teaching, because it's very different to tell them. It's much easier to watch somebody, you know, to have them model the teaching, how it's done. And we've got so many different models that we can use because different teachers do it different ways. And so that's our next project, is to see if we can't get, say, the Lucas Foundation to buy video cameras for X number of classrooms, you know, 5 sets of camera and the lanyards where it's picking up the teacher's voice and it's following them as they're in their room. So we can actually have lots of examples of how you teach when you have this. You know, picture's worth 1,000 words and a video is even better. Why didn't we do that? Duh, I wasn't thinking until I asked a question of why, you know, why was it that you were put off by it initially? And the response was, she thought that the children were just sitting there with their head in their computer all day.
No.
Or bad.
And so what we've done is we did a survey of the teachers. We had 80 responses. Back then we had about 150 teachers when we did this. This was early, about 8 weeks into the project. And the remote in the fall, early, and October, and remote only, you could see that they're saying 30% said we're using it. 75% of what we do to 100% is your curriculum. Wow, that's cool. Now the face-to-face, there's a little different distribution, but basically they're using it. Now very few, 0, you can see 0. I mean, a few of them, 5 out of the 80 who are reporting aren't using it, but 75, they're using it. They're using it. Makes sense. Let me show you this one. Oh, how are things going? I mean, and you could see, well, not well at all. I mean, that
11%, that's about 2 people.
Yeah, 3 people.
Yeah,
5 people.
3 people.
But you know, and it's not clear what's slightly well. We need to do better. Our survey wasn't so good.
Well, it was very, very quick, and Elliot sent it out, which is why we got a low response rate. I said we need to send it to the principal and let the principal send it out, or the technology coordinator, whoever's in charge at that particular school, so they'll respond to them. That was just responding to us, we don't get that high a response rate, because it's not
my fault.
They don't have to respond to us, but they do their principal.
Kathy should have told me.
Said they'd send it out.
I learned.
Yeah,
and so things are going. They're going well. Yeah, they're going.
Okay, we need to answer more questions. We need to have this conversation. That's what we wanted, but
yeah, ask. Now I'm going to have to drop out at the hour, but Kathy can stay, and I'll just keep everything going. But I have to something else.
Okay, I would predict that only early adopters use the tools at first. Middle adopters may start tinkering with the off-the-shelf curricula after 2 to 3 years of use. Late adopters will never tinker. There's good curriculum leadership in the school district or among the collaborative work groups of teachers. Then that's where the tool use will be found as they localize the available lessons. Well, and again, that's, Rob, why I thought that we made a mistake in that we didn't say, this is curriculum, it's aligned to Michigan standards, you can use it as it is. And, you know, just start using it because it's very easy. And we could have shown them how to do that. But the teachers who were doing the PD were so excited about all the things that they could do that they tended to tell the teachers, oh, okay, and here's how you do this, and here's how you do this, and here's how you use Flipbook so that you have a continuous log. Well, if you put this URL into the node, then every day it'll bring up the previous ones. So they always have a current log. They have this running, you know, their reading log and so on. Okay. And the other thing is we built a platform, a very plain, what we thought, a very simple platform. It's the teachers. It's the teachers who wanted to do things like to have a running log. Well, how do you do that? How do you get the same material to reappear every day when you're building new roadmap? The teachers figured out what they needed, how the tools needed to be changed, what additions had to be made. They made it sing and dance. It has nothing to do with us. It's the people who were developing the lessons, the teachers who really made the curriculum fun and good and easy for the teachers. They just requested video in PDF-Pal. There's audio, but they want video in it too. Okay, we had that discussion last night also with the developer. Okay, how are we going to develop? How long is it going to take? That sort of thing. Okay, the new user first login experience has to be ready to set up and use in tomorrow's class. It is. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, it's absolutely ready to go.
Boom. Boom.
But we didn't emphasize that.
No.
When the teachers did the PD for the districts, they didn't emphasize that it was ready to go. They emphasized how they could change it, how they could personalize it on day one for their own classes, instead of just take it and use it. And next week you can personalize if you want to. You can tweak one thing next week.
Just want to show before I go wait
a minute. Will efforts be made to partner with TEA directly as Rice, OpenStax, or other OER providers have done?
Good question.
I'm not sure who that's a question for.
Help us, Tom. Let's do it. I mean, what is the way that we need to do to use this in Texas? How do we do this in Texas? In Michigan, I know people.
It had to be TEKS aligned. So that was the first goal. And we're rapidly, or at least I think we're rapidly getting it done.
Fran did a great job. Yep.
And I know that Texas is not an NGSS is not required. We know that we need another science. We need somebody to develop another science curriculum. Mystery science, we know you have to pay for. But Elliot, didn't you say you found a science?
No. Well, I think Engage New York. I don't know. The answer is I don't know.
Okay.
But we
were looking for another science. There are a lot of them out there that could be converted. And there's another company. There's a company called KIDM. I mean, there is a need for curriculum. KIDM is a company that we came across just the other day. And they say, we believe curriculum reigns supreme when it comes to improving student outcomes and bringing da-da-da-da-da. They do digital curriculum, but what they are is a value-added reseller. So they go to people like Illustrative Math that have created a great math program. They buy Illustrative Math's curriculum, and then they give it to schools, but they charge for PD, and their PD is very expensive. So that's where they make their money, is on PD. But all they do is take curriculum that other people have developed. Some of the OER companies have some very plain Jane courses. But if you want those, then you can buy it. You can get it through KIDM. They'll deliver it to you, and you have to pay for their PD. If you don't, you can't use their materials without buying their PD. That was a good question. What else? Other questions? Did we, Lynn, come back on? Elliot, Chris, stop sharing your screen.
Hi.
Yes, ma'am.
So when a teacher wants to do this herself, it's
Yes.
all free, right? If you explore things and they are all free, right? That's
Well, if the teacher wants to use it in their classroom, then they've got to pay somebody's got to pay the $24.99, because again, we get charged from Google for the storage, and from another company called Keen that stores all of the data. So we have, if people want to do research, if you've got doc students that want to do research, we have got tons of data. Now it's log file data, so it's not easy.
But we got everything.
So
we're getting every day.
on what the children are doing. And but again, we're having to pay for all the storage for the data and the computation. But it's available. We'll certainly make it available to anyone who wants to do research on it, on how the children, I mean, I'm curious, do children who use just text-based, do they do as well? Does the fact that it's a graphical interface, to me, that was what was interesting, because they can see the whole map of where they've been, where they're going, what's happening. But when they get the URLs from Google Classroom, it's a list of URLs. To me, it's not the same. Does it make a difference for children in their learning? I don't know. So, but it would be wonderful for somebody to find out, for someone to do some research on it. That NISD is starting K-8 connected school this fall. They might be interested in this. I'd love to study its integration. Well, then, Lauren. Now, the only problem is right now we don't go to 8. We only do K-5, because that's what was requested in Michigan. They said that's where there was a dearth of materials. However, we have all the charter schools. We've got 3 different charter schools groups, 2 in Michigan and 1 that is in Jordan. And they do work in the camps, in the refugee camps. They have some schools in Michigan, but they also have a branch in the refugee camps in Jordan. And they need 6, 7, and 8. So we're looking to get funding, and we're having a conversation on Thursday to get funding from them to build out the 6, 7, and 8 so that they can use it in their schools, because the charter schools are all K-8. And that was a drawback for them initially, is they didn't want something that they could only offer to K-5 and then have to explain to the parents why the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders are using text-based materials and the other kids are using something else. So.
right. Yeah, I definitely agree. There's quite some research. Dr. Lee is organizing the session, and I think we should look into the data, right?
Well, there's a ton of it. I mean, literally, we've been collecting data since the very first pilot and all year this year on the students. So there's, 2 to 3, on any given day, there's different numbers that log in, because they don't, today they may be doing something that's totally teacher led. They've got it on the board, and as they say, they're doing a lot of work that doesn't require them to actually use their computer. There's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of build for their science projects and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Right. Other questions?
Providers create accessible materials. Most of the OER providers don't necessarily create. Some of them do have some courses. CK12 is one of them. You can go to CK12 and see what they have. and guru.org is another one. You can just go Google OER and you can see what they have. Most of them have 5 million objects, which means, some of them are videos, some of them are simulations, some of them are PDFs, some of them are just lesson plans and so on. Anyway, so if you're looking for OER, but see, we found the OER, the teachers found the OER, but somebody needed to stitch it together to take the individual objects and to make them into cohesive lessons instead of it just being one, all one-off activities. That's what was needed. And that's what ours is all based on OER, but the teachers have taken the time to go through, find all the OERs that are appropriate and stitch them together so that they make cohesive lessons.
Right, looks like there are several tracks we need to follow up. One is, the funding.
Yes.
Looking at the funding. Another is really connecting with some Texas agencies and schools, right? Just to figure out how, we can make the system work.
Right.
And the third one is really to get some research out, looking at the data, and that will also help support.
Right, and the only day Elliot started talking about the NWEA scores, and we are getting the NWEA scores from the teachers, and we are seeing that they are very good. But all that's doing is comparing teacher project. We had one teacher say that the students with the roadmap gained more in one semester than her students had. I mean, they grew more in one semester than they had the whole year previously. But they're actively involved and engaged, not only with the teacher, with their materials, but with the other students all the time. That's the whole point of having everything visual. They're not just sitting reading.
We did run out of time. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. And I don't know if other people may have other questions, but otherwise, thank you very much, Kathy.
You're quite welcome. Our pleasure. And again, we just want to make it available for anyone that wants to use it. We don't want to force it on anybody, but if we think that it could benefit schools, all of the schools that we're working with in Michigan right now are Title I. So they're all the schools who cannot afford to buy, to pay the $300 or $400 per child to get the materials. So they're Title I schools. So again, we don't have the cream of the crop, as far as the kids. It's just regular children who seem to be benefiting.
Right. Well, you've worked so hard for so many years. It's like
yeah, an overnight. Yeah, we have been doing it, and that's why we weren't talking about this initially, but oh, thank you, Mike. Regular kids are the cream of the crop. It was not very well put on my part. What I meant was the intellectually elites, as opposed to the children who are average as far as their ability.
Yeah, I know. I figured that out. I just
But thank you for correcting me. I'll watch that in the future. But the hardest part of this was getting Elliot to go to curriculum instead of tools, because he's a tool maker, and he's interested in the tool. But what we found was that giving them the tools keeps putting the burden on teachers. For all those schools that can't afford to get, to buy curriculum.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So what Kathy actually meant was really sort of along the same lines what Mike was saying. It is the struggling kids that we are targeting here.
Yes.
And this program itself is really pulling, all the pedagogies, whether it's online or offline, the technologies that are needed, right? And making it available, accessible for all the kids. So.
Yes, because when they told us to do K-5, I was actually happy, because I'm very much a believer that if you don't make children successful in the early grades, if you don't give them every opportunity to succeed, then they're going to be dropping out. Because if you're not successful in school, why do you want to keep going back to do things where you're failing on a regular basis? Give them every opportunity, regardless of what it is, to be successful in the early years so they'll want to continue and stay in school. So working with the K-5s, yeah, I'll do that, and we'll do everything we can to make them successful because we want them to continue. We don't want them dropping out. The dropout rate in Detroit is very similar to the one in Dallas, which is Detroit's about 50%. Well, we want to see if we can stop it. And yes, Bill, as soon as we can get funds, we do want to do at least 6, 7, and 8. It's just that we have to be able to pay the teachers.
Well, thank you again, Dr. Norris.
Welcome.